Hello and welcome to Inspired to Taste. I'm Liz Joy and today I'll be making a stylish Wonka-inspired cookie character. Every year I create a fashion-forward cookie character for my nephew. This year he asked me to add a top hat and a bow tie to the outfit. At first I thought I'd go with a traditional tuxedo look, but then I decided a Wonka-inspired edible outfit would be way more fun and definitely fitting for my chocoholic nephew. I'll be combining fashion elements from Gene Wilder's original Willy Wonka and the recent version played by Timothée Chalamet. Let's get started. I'm using chocolate marshmallow fondant for the face, hands, and feet on this character. I like that the color gives him the look of a gingerbread man. I'm cutting all my fondant pieces using laminated templates. You can use just a tiny bit of water to attach fondant to cookie surfaces. Here I'm using my top hat template to make sure I attach the face in the right spot. His eye sockets got a little stretched out, but that's an easy fix using the template, my pen blade, and a fondant shaping tool. Next, I'll add a stitched detail. This is one of my favorite techniques for creating fabric effects. And then I'll just repeat all this for his hands and feet. I'm using hybrid consistency royal icing to create his eyeballs with a wet-on-wet piping technique. Adding additional colors while the previous layers are still wet allows all of the colors to settle into one smooth surface. Once his fondant face is completely set, I'm adding rosy cheeks to give him a bit of a jolly look. Then I grabbed a couple of different styles of food coloring pens to draw his mouth and eyebrows. This bar cutting board is one of my favorite options for adding fabric textures to fondant when recreating textiles with a slightly rough surface like denim or twill. Once this texture dries, it's really fun to add painted effects to bring out the details even more. A light brushing of water to act as glue, and then I'm going to make sure his pants are on correctly before gently securing them to the cookie surface. After that, I'm using a combination of my fondant and clay tools to add stitching and folds. Then I'll let this layer dry. I'm not sure how much of his shirt will actually end up showing, but just in case it does, I want to add a hint of color as a backdrop. Once the fondant pants are set, I can add painted and drawn-on details with food coloring, starting by exaggerating the shadows a bit with a light wash of tan, then adding a tone-on-tone plaid pattern. And for a finishing touch, little cuffs to clean up the bottom edges. I'm modeling my hat after Timothée Chalamet's version, and am adding a texture effect using another cutting board surface. This one adds a leatherette look to the fondant. These are obviously my favorite tools for adding fold and wrinkle effects to fondant. Once I'm happy with the shapes, I'm exaggerating them by using food coloring to add shadows and highlights. If you're enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd also love to hear what themes you'd like to see me bake up next. And a royal icing border to create a bit of lift on the edge and a cleaner border. The hat still felt a little flat, so I decided to add a colored band using some of my leftover green fondant. In the end, I wished I'd gone with a different color, maybe the tan, but I don't hate the green. I also painted a monochromatic plaid design onto the band to give it more visual interest. I'll be using wafer paper to add a velvet texture to my edible jacket. Start by painting one side of the wafer paper in a food coloring shade of your choice. I decided to go with original Wonka purple. Once dry, cut it into small pieces, place them in an electric spice grinder, and grind them down until the pieces are the consistency of crumbs. then set this aside for now. I cut his jacket into separate pieces, then allowed the fondant to dry overnight. Then I'm going to use a matching shade of royal icing as glue for the velvet flocking. I painted it into a very thin layer, then I'm dipping it in the flocking. How cool is that? I absolutely adore this effect. Then I'm just repeating the technique for all the jacket sections. Now I can dress him in a snazzy jacket using royal icing as glue. I'm also adding piping and buttons made from confetti sprinkles painted with metallic bronze from Bakel. Next comes a miniature little bow tie, which I'm shaping out of fondant. I ended up swapping out the tan bow tie for a purple one and also added some cufflink details. And for one more layer of chocolatey goodness, I'm adding a chocolate ganache filling, turning this more traditional cookie into a rich and delicious sandwich cookie. And here's the final reveal. Tap or click to see the doll cookie I made for my niece as part of this tasty duo.